We've entered into the earth for safety and shelter, found riches there, dug out a way of life, yet it continues to be a place of fear. It's dark there, and we naturally fear the darkness, but a little light goes a long way in the dark. Hi, I'm Bill Landry. Join us as we head into the earth on Heartland Tonight.
It's the best of the Heartland Series with Bill Landry on Heartland Tonight.
Tennessee is calling, rolling hills all dressed in green. Hear the heartland calling like an Appalachian spring. Smoky Mountain night is falling. The heartland's calling me, calling me.
We live in a land of beauty and grand sights, surrounded by places such as the Big South Fork and the Great Smoky Mountains. But a different world of wonders lies just below the surface. Tonight, we'll seek out caves, old and new. We'll face the creatures of darkness, and we'll visit Cumberland Gap. What we see on the surface of the earth tells only part of the story that time and nature have written. A place like White Oak Sinks offers a glimpse at the underlying stories.
In our region's past, the people and the land are inseparably linked. A good example is White Oak Sinks in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Descendants of the Ledbetter family that lived here returned to explore a rich personal history, one that began because they found large openings of fertile flat land right in the middle of the mountains.
Cades Cove, Tuckaleechee Cove, Wares Cove, White Oak Sinks, they're all what we call geologic windows.
Erosion created the windows. Through them, the Smokies' fascinating geologic past unfolds.
All the rocks that formed the bulk of the Smokies were formed in an ocean basin between 500 million and 1 billion years ago. Now this is actually phyllite, which was derived from shale, which was a clay sediment that formed in the bottom of the ocean.
About 280 million years ago, constant earthquakes and volcanic eruptions ruled the earth. The turmoil threw Africa and North America together. As millions of years passed, Africa twisted, pushing and folding rock and ocean sediments far to the northwest. The cataclysmic force created the Appalachian Mountains. What is amazing is that a massive sheet of old rock was shoved 250 miles up over younger rock. This is a fault, the Great Smoky Thrust Fault. Imagine yourself after the collision standing on Thunderhead Mountain looking toward Chilhowie Mountain. Leaping forward in time, we see openings where erosion attacks the less resistant rock, and deep within, water eats at the underlying limestone, creating cavities in the earth that grow ever larger. The process exposes the fault plane and the younger rock beneath, creating geologic windows, the coves and White Oak Sinks.
Bill, as we come on down through here, you'll see that we're entering the sink proper. We're still above the fault. We're down below the thrust fault now. We're down in the younger rock. See the massive limestone exposed here. Well, we're walking down here on the floor of the sinkhole where it looks relatively flat, but it's underlain by a lot of cavities. There's one of the caves. This is Blowing Cave. These caves here probably developed during the last 20,000 years.
Rainbow Cave shows the Great Smoky Fault and water's tireless work on the limestone rock.
The almost horizontal looking line there is the Great Smoky Thrust Fault. Up above that line are the old Precambrian deep water sediments, and those below it are the carbonate shallow water rocks, which are younger.
Plentiful water and the rich limestone soil was prized by settlers.
Well, the material that eroded down off of the surrounding slopes accumulated in the floor of these sinks and became very fertile. Settlers found this out and cleared it and put crops in.
The people left over 60 years ago, but their presence remains strong.
We'll venture into the underworld when we return. The land around us hides numerous caves, some large, some no more than a crack in the earth. A few folks delight in discovering the undiscovered. They thrill to be the first to set foot into a cave.
Theirs is a frontier made up mostly of rock and absolute darkness. In their quest to discover hidden and unknown secrets underground, they cover rough terrain, hence their nickname Ridge Walkers. This and every expedition is an adventure in search of uncharted caves, plentiful within Tennessee's limestone-rich landscape.
You're looking out over the sinkhole plain here, just nothing but limestone. There's no surface drainage at all. It all disappears in these sinkholes. Now here's a little teeny sink, and you'll be surprised. Like I've gone and dug open stuff like this, pulled the leaves back, found little teeny holes which I've dug open. It's led into big caves. So you got to check everything. Don't get over here by the edge, it's quite wet.
Where water emerges is likely a cave site.
It's real slippery. This is Triple Falls Cave. We were here about 2 weeks ago.
How far back does this one go?
We went about 600 feet. It got too low, the water level was pretty high.
Maps help locate sites with promise. Landowners provide other clues.
Back up, well, any one of these branches will take you back that way. And you can make it down Big Holler.
In this way, the Ridge Walkers have added to Tennessee's inventory of 8,000 caves. As the sun begins its descent, we come across what appears to be a good prospect.
We got water coming out down here. That's a good sign, and I can't tell which way it's flowing yet, but I suspect it's flowing into the cave. I'll tell you what, we'll name this Heartland Cave, and you lead.
Yeah. Is there
Virgin
bears
cave.
in this cave?
Well, if
Bobcats?
there is, you'll be the victim, not me.
Bears, snakes.
The Heartland Cave turns out to be a bit snug. And wet. But worthy of the Ridge Walkers' exploration.
Looks like it dead ends to me. I don't see any side passages.
Are we going down there?
Let's look underneath first. I have a feeling underneath looks a little higher, much higher.
I mean, this is a passage here.
Yeah, this is the main way. Well, see, we're down by the water again. You want to follow the water. That's a little brown bat, little pipistrelle up there. This time of year, they're starting to get a little active. Well, Bill, I think we reached the end of Heartland Cave as far as we're concerned.
In the spirit of adventure, these explorers map Tennessee's uncharted interior. For each of them, a cave holds that bit of mystery that has always pushed humans to new, undiscovered places.
See things in a cave that no other human being has seen before. You can go places no other human being has gone before. To me, it's just really exciting.
A trip into a cave takes us into another world. As the light of the outside world fades, we head into the mysteries of the past.
Bone Cave was formed millions of years ago during a great upheaval, but the waters that carved the maze of passageways have long since departed. This cave is dry, and this fluke of nature helped form our history. Its namesake was found in 1811, the bones of a giant ground sloth that was probably washed into the cave by a prehistoric sea. The constant temperature and low humidity of this arid cave left the bones well preserved. But it was the soil itself that really allowed Bone Cave to make its mark in history. It contains a mineral called saltpeter, the primary ingredient in gunpowder desperately needed by the South during the Civil War. By the light of pine torches, as many as 300 men worked around the clock and supplied the Confederacy with 25% of its gunpowder. One of those men was Benjamin Sparkman, a slave who not only worked in the cave but had to live there until providing gunpowder was a lost cause. His daughter, Etta Cummings, remembers the stories he told of hard work, no sunshine, and little food.
He was just put in there to take care of him, keep him, the, rebels or whatever, Yankees, I believe it was, from taking him off.
The passageways Benjamin Sparkman roamed for 2 years of his life haven't changed a great deal in 120 years.
This was a skyway, built it as an elevated wooden railroad. They would dig up the soil back behind us in the cave and come out on this railroad track and dump it into this cart. That's an old hoe that they used to dig up the cave soil with. You can see it was made like in a blacksmith shop.
The carts took the soil to the vats that were supplied with water through an elaborate system of hollowed-out logs. The water dissolved the saltpeter into a solution collected from the bottom of the vats. After the water was boiled out, only the saltpeter remained. But this system of digging and hauling the soil took its toll on the men who lived below the earth. Many died in this cave after being forced to eat, drink, and breathe in a world full of dust.
They'd slip out in the night and get that corn. Just anybody's field, you know. And they'd bring it there, and they'd chuck it and drop it in that saltpeter. They boiled it in that saltpeter.
What must that have tasted like?
He said it was terrible.
Do you want to go in that cave?
No, I don't. I just feel like I'd just be like my daddy was, just almost the same. You stay in one hole way back into one place 2 years, it gets old.
Next, creatures of the night. Go into enough caves and you're bound to find yourself eye to eye with creatures of darkness, bats. They may not be the most lovable of creatures, but they aren't as bad as folklore and dark legend make them out to be.
Why did the federal government... Like us, bats are mammals. They are the only mammals that can fly, and some species, like the gray bat, are endangered.
The gray bat is the species in North America that's most dependent upon caves. Throughout its life cycle, it needs caves, and it needs different types of caves at different times of the year.
Gray bats live only in caves, and the number of caves that are undisturbed by humans is dwindling. 10 years ago, this cave near Scottsboro, Alabama, was in private hands, and the gray bats here were on the brink of extinction. Now owned and managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Blowing Wind has a thriving bachelor colony of male bats. Tonight's emergence will attest to that.
At 8 o'clock this evening, you'll see the first few bats come out and sample the light and go back into the cave.
What's the gate for?
The gate is to keep people out of the cave. People are welcome to come here and observe the emergence, but it's very important that the bats are not disturbed inside the caves. I really don't know.
A few miles away is Hambrick Cave on Gunnersville Lake. It's host to a maternity colony of mothers and their newborn young. Before the fence went up, boaters would go into the cave and throw firecrackers at the bats. They were nearly wiped out. Today, the bats are protected by TVA and federal law.
Is that the vision scope?
This is it.
As the bats emerge, Fred Bagley will try to estimate their number with a night vision scope. Bats are sensitive to bright light, but they can't see infrared light. The night vision scope can. At Blowing Wind, the first few bats appear to sample the light. As darkness grows, so does their number. The emergence is underway at Hambrick Cave, too.
Primarily, we have females in here raising their young. They arrived here in early April, gave birth in May, and now they're coming out over the reservoir to feed so they can go back and nurse their young. Well, you don't count them, but you do it similar to what you're doing right there. You try to estimate how many bats are coming out per second.
At Blowing Wind, that job is more difficult.
When you see hundreds of thousands of them coming out of the caves, you know they're having a significant impact on on the ecosystem, on the insects that they're feeding on.
Each bat will eat 3,000 insects tonight. There are 350,000 bats emerging from each cave. By morning, they will have eaten a ton of insects.
The gray bats do the same job that your purple martins do in the daytime, your barn swallows, your chimney swifts.
They're like purple martins, aren't they?
Right, they're just the purple martins of the night.
Promptly at dusk, they emerge, gray bats by the thousands in northern Alabama. Together, they'll eat a ton of insects before the night is through. Gray bats are among the gentlest of mammals and pose no threat to humans. But still, we fear them.
Well, they operate at night, and they're unknown. And they're just kind of a mysterious animal, and we tend to be afraid of things that we don't know much about.
Blind as a bat. Are they blind?
No, bats aren't blind at all. Bats have eyes. We just assume that they're blind because they're operating in the dark, but they're not blind at all.
They are able to get around in the dark because of their unique form of sonar. They emit high-frequency calls that echo back and give them an image of what their environment looks like. For the gray bat, that environment is changing. The caves it needs for its survival have dwindled to a precious few. Each colony must use 3 different caves during the year. In spring and summer, it needs one type of cave for mothers and their young, and another type for adult males. In winter, it needs a deep, vertical cave for hibernation. Gray bat caves are now federally owned and protected. To get a close-up view of gray bats, we hope to enter a cave where newborn young are roosting. It is forbidden by law to go inside a gray bat cave without special permission from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. For the safety of the young, we must enter the cave only after the adults have emerged for the evening.
Let's go, it's time.
This won't disturb them? All the mamas are gone?
We've waited for the mothers to go, so it should be okay to go in now. There are some mothers in here, but most of those you're seeing are young that are not able to fly yet. These were born the end of May.
Gray bats are mammals. That means that these babies were born live, not hatched from eggs. They have hair, not feathers, and they are fed mother's milk.
They're in the clusters, just waiting for their mothers to come back and feed them.
Bat droppings called guano can be found in mountains 30 feet high. By studying bat guano, scientists can learn about contaminants in our environment. Though their populations have increased recently, gray bats are still an endangered species, and any loss is cause for concern.
What could have killed those?
Well, we could have a contaminant problem that's just beginning to manifest itself, and then it could be disturbance. This is the most number of dead that we've seen here. So it is kind of a surprise and something to pay attention to in the future.
By eating insects and telling us about the relative health of our environment, these weird-looking creatures serve us well.
I know a lot of people look at a bat and they're kind of repulsed by their appearance, but maybe we don't have to have our hands all over everything in the world. Maybe everything doesn't have to be pretty for us. Maybe we can appreciate the function that they provide us.
The curiosities of Cumberland Gap when Heartland Tonight returns. Quite a stretch of time spans from Cumberland Gap's Wilderness Road to present U.S. Highway 25E, where 3 states meet. What's really amazing is that soon the past will come full circle. The only opening in a tangle of rugged mountains. The Gap was the way west. It's no surprise then the states argued its boundaries. Britain hoped for royal hospitality. A Civil War general memorialized Lincoln. And wilderness is staging a comeback. Even today, geography makes Cumberland Gap a cross point like no other in Tennessee's past.
Frontier long hunters stepped through the gap to bountiful western hunting grounds. Traded pelts found their way to Paris and London. From London in the next century came the American Association, enterprising Brits who posed removal of other resources, this time coal and iron ore. Good times being a high priority, the company built a hotel fit for royalty and Harrigan. Invited the railroad in, but the Brits soon went bust. The Hotel Sanatorium lived on as Grant Lee Hall at Lincoln Memorial. Today, traces of Old England linger in Cumberland Gap. Tay, anyone? None for Daniel Boone, thanks. He and 30 axemen blazed a trail through the gap in 1775, opening a path for settlers, then moved on. Later, two stellar surveyors, Henderson and Walker, were hired by North Carolina and Virginia to survey their western territories. They started out at the same place, but ended up miles apart at Cumberland Gap. Their compromise resulted in the diagonal jagged line that today separates Tennessee and Kentucky. The post station at Cumberland Gap never moved, but at different times was claimed by 3 states. 2 armies fought to control the gap in the Civil War. Amid the fight, Lincoln was thinking about the future. He pointed out to the Christian general O.O. Howard, "I want you to do something for these people who have been shut out of the world all these years." Howard led the crusade to start a school in the shadow of the gap, Lincoln Memorial University. But the general must have left his Christian attitude behind. He headed west to chase Nez Perce Chief Joseph around, finally forcing from him the famous surrender, "I will fight no more forever." Though Howard never came back, the gap is where it's always been. In fact, it's soon to be what it was.
Right here is the Cumberland Gap, and all the long hunters, Native Americans on the Warrior's Path, all of them pass through this gap.
Jack Collier is the chief ranger of the national park that now encompasses the gap. Its rich history seems lost on this busy road today, but a tunnel under the gap will change all that. With the tunnel, another underground wonder soon will return.
This cave will be reopened for visitors to the park, and it'll be a wild cave type tour.
It is a hoped-for shot in the arm for the local economy.
Already we're seeing a flurry of development right in the gap and a surrounding area.
In time, the gap will come full circle as blacktop gives way to dirt, and a small path replaces 25E. Wilderness Road returns, again opening a doorway to opportunity.
Come back and really walk in the steps of Boone.
The tunnel under the gap is now open and has become something of a tourist attraction itself. See you next week on Heartland Tonight.